Have you ever wondered why some men seem to have women chasing them, while others, despite doing everything right, get ignored? What if the type of man 99% of women are truly drawn to isn't the one society keeps telling you to become? And what if the most magnetic trait a man can carry has nothing to do with money, looks, or smooth lines, but everything to do with how he shows up in silence? Let's break the illusion, because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of what you've been taught about attraction is either outdated, shallow, or flat out wrong. It's not about being rich. It's not. You're about to learn the real psychology behind what makes a man unforgettable, not just liked, not just respected, but remembered, even long after the moment has passed. And here's what makes this so powerful. Most women don't consciously realize this themselves. They'll describe it as chemistry, as mystery, as "I don't know, he just had something." That something isn't luck. It's not genetics. It's not playing games. It's something you can cultivate. And once you do, everything changes. This video isn't about gimmicks. It's not pickup lines or weird tricks. It's about energy, presence, inner gravity. Because the men who get this, who embody this, don't chase. They attract. They don't perform. They anchor. They don't try to prove themselves to women. They let women discover them. And that subtle difference? It's everything. We're going to break down the 6 types of men who activate this response in women without even trying. Real men with real stories and real lived experiences that most guys miss because they're too busy playing the wrong game. These aren't opinions. They're patterns, observed, tested, and proven. And if you can see yourself in even one of these archetypes, or better yet, become one, your entire dynamic with women and with yourself is going to shift in ways you can't unsee. So don't click away. Stay present, because what you're about to hear isn't in dating books. It's not on your friend's podcast, and it's definitely not in that Reddit thread. But it's real. And if you're the kind of man who's ready to evolve, not just date better, but live better, this is your moment. Let's begin. Let me tell you something most men will never understand. The guy who gets under a woman's skin, in the best way, isn't the loudest, the richest, or the most charming. It's the one who doesn't flinch, the one who doesn't shift his tone to please her, who doesn't flood her with texts when she goes silent, who doesn't need her approval to feel like a man. That guy? He's rare, and he's unforgettable. There's a quiet, unshakable power in a man who simply is. A man who doesn't chase attention, who doesn't panic when a woman pulls away, who doesn't feel the urge to explain himself every 5 minutes just to be understood. This isn't arrogance. It's sovereignty. It's emotional control. It's the kind of grounded energy that makes a woman stop in her tracks because something about him feels different. Take my client, Mike. Regular dude, software engineer, quiet, focused, grounded. He once went to a networking mixer and found himself in a conversation with a stunning woman. One of those women who instantly becomes the center of gravity in a room. Every guy was orbiting her. She walked up to Mike, expecting the usual routine: flattery, nervous energy, performance. But Mike? He yawned. Not in a rude way, just naturally. He was tired. That was it. And she couldn't stop thinking about him for months. Why? Because she couldn't figure him out. He didn't react. He didn't try to impress. And that uncertainty, The unknown was magnetic. You see, women aren't captivated by men who orbit them. They're drawn to the ones they can't predict, can't place, can't fully access. It's primal, because at the core, attraction isn't about logic. It's about energy. And the man who doesn't flinch, he gives off the kind of energy that whispers, "I don't need you to choose me. I've already chosen myself." When a woman meets that man, her mind spirals. Not because he's playing games, but because he's operating from a place she rarely encounters: calm, centered, unattached strength. He's not cold, he's just clear, and clarity is hot. So if you're the guy who overtexts, overthinks, and overgives, pause. Ask yourself, am I acting from self-respect or self-doubt? Because once you stop chasing and start embodying the man who doesn't flinch, you'll notice something shift. Not just in how women respond to you, but in how you see yourself. And when that changes, everything else follows. Let me ask you something real. When a woman opens up to you, do you listen to understand, or do you listen to respond? Because most men, even good men, don't realize they're doing the latter. They hear her speak, and instead of seeing her, they jump in with a fix, a flex, or a story of their own. But there's a different kind of man, a rare kind. A man who doesn't perform, doesn't compete, doesn't dominate the space. He reflects. He's what I call the mirror. And women don't just like this man. They remember him. The mirror doesn't feel the need to impress her with his job title, his muscles, or how many hours he works. He doesn't turn her stories into a competition. She says she's working 14-hour days chasing a promotion. And while most guys might say, "That's nothing, I work 16, the mirror pauses and says, "That sounds exhausting. Do you feel like it's worth it?" That's not a line. It's a key, a door opener. It tells her, "I'm here, I see you, and I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to connect." And that, in today's world, is rare. Because think about it. Women are constantly being sold something. On social media, in conversations, even in relationships, they're pitched, persuaded, and pursued to the point of exhaustion. But when they meet a man who isn't selling, who's just present, it feels like oxygen. It feels like truth. And truth is magnetic. This man doesn't nod just to seem supportive. He listens with his whole presence. When she talks about her fears, he doesn't interrupt. When she shares her dreams, he doesn't steer the spotlight back to himself. He holds the space, quietly, steadily. And in doing so, he makes her feel something she's rarely felt before with a man. Emotionally safe. Not evaluated, not tested, just seen. And that safety, it changes everything. She texts him first. She thinks about him more. Not because he played a game, but because he offered something most men don't. A mirror that doesn't distort, only reflects. He gives her room to be, without needing her to perform either. Now don't get this twisted. Being the mirror doesn't mean agreeing with everything she says. It doesn't mean abandoning your values or shrinking to make her comfortable. It means responding instead of reacting. It means standing your ground while still allowing her to feel understood. It means being so centered in yourself that you don't need to prove a thing, because your presence speaks for you. And when a woman meets that kind of presence, she remembers it. She chases it. She tells her friends, "He just gets me." Not because you fixed her, but because you felt her. That's the mirror. And in a world full of noise, he's the silence she's been craving. There's a type of man, who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word, but everyone notices. He doesn't shout. He doesn't show off. He doesn't compete for attention. But somehow, you feel him. You sense something beneath the surface. It's not loud, but it's powerful. And women? They feel it more than anyone else. This man carries what I call the storm in his calm. He's still, but he's not soft. He's grounded, but not passive. He has that rare presence that says, "I've been through fire, and I don't flinch anymore." It shows up in subtle ways, in how he holds eye contact a second longer than expected, without blinking or backing down. In the way he listens, really listens, without jumping to interrupt or prove a point. In how he doesn't rush to explain himself or seek approval. He's not here to impress. He's here to be. There's a quiet intensity about him, a controlled chaos, like a storm carefully bottled beneath the surface. And that tension? It's magnetic, because we live in a world full of noise, of overcompensation, of men who try too hard to be noticed. But this man, he does the opposite. And that contrast, his silence in a sea of shouting, makes him unforgettable. Women can't fully explain it, but they feel it. It stirs something inside them that logic can't touch. And it's not about wealth or looks or charm. It's about depth. It's about emotional gravity. The kind of depth that says, "I know who I am. I've made peace with my past. I don't need you to complete me, but I'll welcome you into my world if you can handle the truth of it." That kind of man, the kind of calm, it drives women wild, not in a flashy way, but in a way that lingers. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And when a man lives from that place, it shows. He doesn't get thrown off by mood swings, and he decides if it's worth his energy. And ironically, that restraint, that power held in reserve, is what makes women lean in. Because deep down, they want to know, what's behind that silence? What has he lived through? What is he capable of? And here's the truth most men miss. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to perform to be seen. When you develop real inner stillness, the kind that comes from facing your demons and not running, it shows. In your walk, in your gaze, in your choices. And when a woman senses that, you become the calm she didn't know she was craving, and the storm she never saw coming. There's a quiet kind of power that most men never learn to master, and it's this: knowing when to walk away. Not storming out, not slamming doors, but calmly, clearly, and unapologetically removing yourself the moment something feels misaligned. And let me be clear, this isn't about ego, it's about self-respect. Because when you stay in a situation that no longer honors your values, your peace, or your boundaries, you're not being strong, you're being afraid. And a woman can sense that fear, even when it's dressed up as patience or understanding. Real strength? It looks like a man who doesn't need her to agree with him, who doesn't need to win the argument or prove his point. It's the man who listens, nods when the moment calls for it, gets up and walks away, not out of anger, but out of clarity. And that clarity, it leaves an impression she can't forget. Because here's the truth. Most guys stay too long. They chase, they explain, they compromise themselves hoping she'll change. But the man who knows his worth doesn't beg to be chosen. He chooses himself. I remember a story from a guy I coached, a solid man, confident, grounded, emotionally aware. He started dating a woman who checked a lot of boxes, but there was one red flag. She kept texting other guys and calling them just friends. He brought it up respectfully. She brushed it off. Most men would have argued, begged, or tried to compete, but not him. He said, "Hey, you're free to do whatever you want, but I'm not the kind of man who waits around while someone figures out if I'm worth it." Then he smiled, deleted her number, and went silent. No games, no drama, just gone. 2 weeks later, she messaged him, "I miss you. I made a mistake." But by then, he'd already moved on. Because that's the power of a man who walks away, not to manipulate, but to protect his peace. And as Robert Greene once said, the ability to walk away without looking back is a power few possess and everyone respects. Think about that. How many people in your life respect you because of your standards, because of what you won't tolerate, because of your silence when everyone else is shouting? Here's the lesson. The moment you become a man who will walk away from anything that disrespects your time, your energy, or your vision, you become unforgettable. Because now, your presence means something. You're no longer just available, you're intentional. You don't demand respect, you embody it. And that energy, women don't forget it. Because deep down, they don't crave the man who tries to fix everything. They crave the man who won't stay in something broken just to avoid being alone. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, to chase, to compromise, just to stay, don't. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, am I staying because it's right or because I'm afraid to leave? And if the answer is the latter, then you already know what to do. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but out of the deepest form of masculine power there is, self-respect. There's something powerful about a man who walks into a room and doesn't have to speak to be felt. He doesn't need a pickup line. See, he doesn't need flashy clothes or over-the-top confidence. He doesn't chase attention, he anchors it. Women notice him not because he's loud, but because he's present, fully present. His energy speaks before his words ever do, and in that silence, he becomes magnetic. You see, most men try to impress. They talk too much, laugh too loud. They push themselves into the spotlight, hoping someone will notice. But this man, he does none of that. He simply is. His stillness, his self-possession, his calm, it creates a gravitational pull. He doesn't look around the room, wondering who's watching. He already knows that the right ones will. And here's where the magic happens. When he locks eyes with a woman, he doesn't dart away. He doesn't smile nervously. He holds it, steady, confident, curious, but never invasive. It's not a stare, it's a statement, a quiet one that says, "I see you. I don't need you, but I choose to notice you." That moment, it hits differently, because she's not used to being looked at like that. Not as a trophy, not as a conquest, but as a woman, fully, deeply, specifically. There's a story that sums this up perfectly. A woman on Reddit once wrote about being at a party, surrounded by men all trying too hard. But one guy stood out, not because he talked to her, but because he didn't. Every time she glanced his way, he was already looking. Not in a creepy way, in a grounded, controlled way. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just held her gaze. She said it wasn't that he needed me, it was that I wanted to be needed by him. That's the shift. He didn't pursue. He created space for her to enter his world. And that's what most men miss. Women don't fall for the guy who does the most. They fall for the one who knows how to do less with purpose. The one who gives her the experience of being the only one in the room without having to say a word. He doesn't make her feel chased. He makes her feel chosen. And that difference, it's unforgettable. So the next time you walk into a room, don't lead with your voice. Lead with your presence. Let your stillness be your strength. Let your energy say what your words never could. Because when a woman feels seen, truly seen, without you even trying, she doesn't forget that man. Let's get real. Every man has a story. A heartbreak that hit deeper than expected. A betrayal that shifted how you see people. A loss that reshaped your entire world. Most guys try to hide those scars. They throw on a mask of toughness, pretend nothing ever got to them, bury it under gym reps, jokes, or silence. But there's another kind of man. One who doesn't run from his pain. He faces it, feels it, and eventually transforms it. That man, he's magnetic in a way that no amount of confidence or charm can fake. Because what he carries isn't bitterness, it's depth, it's emotional gravity, and women can feel it instantly, even if they can't explain it. This man doesn't need to talk about his pain to prove he's healed. He doesn't need to share his trauma in every conversation. But the way he carries himself, the way he listens, the way he stays grounded when things get chaotic, reveals that he's been through something, then grew through it. There's no need for performance, no craving for validation. He's not trying to impress you. He's already impressed himself by surviving what almost broke him. And that's the energy that turns heads, not because it's loud, but because it's real. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that. Most men walk through life being controlled by emotions they've never confronted. Resentment from their father, rejection from a past lover, shame from failure. And those emotions leak out in ways they don't even notice. Passive-aggressive comments, commitment issues, explosive reactions to small things. But the man who has done the work, the one who's looked inward and asked, "What am I still carrying that's weighing me down?" he shows up differently. He's not reactive, he's intentional. I knew a guy who had his heart shattered by the woman he thought he'd marry. She cheated, lied, left him questioning everything, and for a while, it crushed him. But instead of becoming another angry, bitter man, he turned inward. He read books. He went to therapy. He traveled alone. He got in the best shape of his life, not to prove anything to her, but to rebuild a relationship with himself. And when he started dating again, women could feel something different. He didn't flinch at red flags. He didn't chase. He wasn't cold, but he was calm. And that calm wasn't empty. It was earned. You see, pain is either the thing that breaks you or the thing that shapes you. And when a woman meets a man who's been through real things but hasn't let those things harden him, ... it hits her differently. Because in a world full of men still bleeding from unhealed wounds, the man who's scarred but solid becomes rare. She knows she can trust his silence. She respects that he doesn't play emotional games. She's drawn to his presence, not because it demands attention, but because it commands it. So if you've been through pain, and I know you have, don't waste it. Don't numb it. Don't deny it. Use it. Let it refine you. Let it teach you. Let it deepen you. Because the man who walks through fire and comes out not angry, but anchored, doesn't just attract women, he inspires them. And more importantly, he respects himself. That's the kind of man the world remembers, not for his flash, but for his foundation. If you've made it to this point, that already sets you apart. Because most guys, they click away. They chase shortcuts. They want results without reflection. But you're still here. And that tells me you're not like most men. You're not just looking for attention. You're looking to evolve. What we've talked about today isn't a game. It's not about tricks or tactics. It's a shift, a transformation from the inside out. Because real attraction isn't about what you say, how you dress, or how many texts you send. It's about who you are. It's about the energy you carry when you walk into a room. It's about the calm in your eyes, the strength in your silence, and the depth behind your presence. And most importantly, it's about becoming a man who doesn't need to be chosen, because he's already chosen himself. So now the question is simple. What will you do with this? Will you go back to the old patterns, or will you start moving like a man who owns his path? Speak like a man who values his words. Stand like a man who doesn't chase approval, because he lives by principle. If you're serious about taking this deeper, not just in dating, but in life, then you're ready for more than just public advice. You're ready for clarity most men never find. That's why I created the Stoic Inner Circle. It's not for everyone, but if you're done playing small and ready to lead from within, the invitation is open. The door won't always be. Walk like you own your story. Because when you do, your presence becomes unforgettable. Be the man who doesn't follow trends, but sets the standard. Be the man who walks alone, not to escape the world, but to lead it. Let's begin the next chapter, on your terms.